The federal indictment of Mayor Cantrell and her former security guard, Jeffrey Vappy, closely mirrors the findings in Lee Zurich's years-long outside the office investigation.
Tonight, he looks at the dates in the indictment that were also key dates in our reports.
On September 23, 2022, we made two separate public records requests to the city, one for Mayor Cantrell's calendar, the other for Officer Jeffrey Vappy's timesheets from August through that day. Vappy and Cantrell apparently became aware of those requests. In Friday's indictment, the feds say on or about September 23rd, Cantrell and Vappy discussed a request about Cantrell's schedule and whether a local investigative reporter was, quote, on to us. But the indictment alleges our inquiries didn't change Cantrell and Vappy's behavior.
So as it relates to my professional relationship with Officer Vappy, that's where it is. It's strictly professional.
Following our stories, which started airing in November of 2022, Mayor Cantrell repeatedly called her relationship with Vappy professional, calling him a trusted advisor.
As I've stated, based on the false allegations that come my way, by the time I finish this job, literally, accused of sleeping with half of the city of New Orleans, both genders and all pronouns. I'm known as Teddy sometimes and then Teddy other times. So with that, false allegations do not, that's basically all I have to say about it.
While Cantrell told the media and taxpayers one thing, the 18-count indictment says she and Vappy conspired together to use taxpayer money and property, which they weren't entitled to, while carrying out their romantic relationship. The feds say that included long hours inside the then city-owned Upper Pentaba apartment and traveling together to conferences across the U.S. and around the globe, spending personal time together, while Cantrell claimed to be working for residents of the city. And Vappy collected a check from the NOPD.
Is it fair for us to ask questions about this?
It's fair to ask questions because this is a taxpayer-owned property, and these are employees paid by the taxpayers.
The indictment federal prosecutors wrote mirrors the findings in our series of stories and digs deeper into some of the questionable trips we uncovered. Here's our initial story, which aired in November of 2022, on a trip the two took to Washington, D.C. in August of that year. The mayor arrived in D.C. on an early Sunday flight, accompanied by NOPD officer Jeffrey Vappy, who served as her security on duty. The mayor had no meetings on her calendar that day, but Vappy, her security, billed taxpayers for 15 hours of work, 7 a.m. until 10 at night. The next day, the only event on the mayor's calendar was a 1:30 p.m. meeting. That day, Vappy claims he worked another 15 hours, from 7 a.m. until 10 at night. Then on Tuesday, the two flew back, according to the mayor's schedule, an early morning flight. Records show that flight arrived back in New Orleans 23 minutes early, just before 10 a.m. Records show the mayor had two other members of her security team on duty that day. Still, after returning to New Orleans around 10 in the morning, Vappy continued to get paid, going off the clock at 9 that night. In the indictment, Cantrell asked Vappy if he would be going on the trip. He replied, absolutely, if possible. Cantrell told him she will make it happen. Vappy told her, we need this. Cantrell replied, boy, do we need this. Here's another trip mentioned in the indictment. From 2022, we repeatedly highlighted Vappy and Cantrell traveling to a conference in San Francisco. Here's what we reported on that trip. In early April, Vappy traveled with the mayor to San Francisco for a conference on climate change. The meeting wrapped up on Friday at noon, but the two didn't leave until the next night, taking a red-eye back on Saturday night at 11:05. The flight landed at 5:22 a.m. back in New Orleans. We've confirmed it was on time. The day of that 5:22 a.m. arrival back home, Vappy stayed on the clock until 12 that night. So on Saturday and Sunday, when all he apparently did was fly on a plane from San Francisco back to New Orleans, taxpayers paid Vappy for 30 hours of work, 15 hours on Saturday, another 15 on Sunday. The federal indictment says the pair planned in advance to spend time together outside the conference. Messages between Cantrell and Vappy from a month earlier on March 7th show Cantrell wrote to Vappy, SF is April 6th through 8th. Do we return on the 8th and stay at apartment or return on the 9th? Vappy later responded, "We stay and do Napa Valley like you said." Cantrell wrote, "Perfect." Here's a picture in the indictment of Vappy and Cantrell at a California winery. Remember those public records requests we made? And Cantrell and Vappy wondering if we were on to them. 6 days after that request, the two departed on another trip, one we focused on as well, to Los Angeles. Thursday, September 29th, Cantrell and Vappy boarded a flight to Los Angeles. They arrived just before 10 a.m. Receipts show they left the airport at 10:34 in an Uber and arrived at their hotel at 11:17. Cantrell and Vappy submitted all of their Uber receipts to the city for repayment. Those receipts don't show any other movement the rest of the day until 6:54 when an Uber took them on a 9-minute ride to a 24,000 square foot mansion for a dinner with Brad Pitt. They stayed at the house for 2 hours and 1 minute, arriving back at the hotel at 9:11. Vappy went off the clock 50 minutes later at 10 o'clock. That day, Vappy billed taxpayers for 16 hours of work. The next morning, they flew back to New Orleans. A source sent us this blurry picture of them in first class. That day, another 16 hours of work. That night, the plane landed back in New Orleans at 4 p.m., but Vappy stayed on the clock an additional 6 hours until 10 that night. The feds now say while claiming to be on duty that day, Vappy also purchased multiple alcoholic beverages and charged the expenses to Cantrell's hotel room. And the indictment says that first-class ticket for Vappy was paid for by Cantrell on her personal credit card.
Is that a good use of police in the city?
No, because there's, I mean, you have to go through security to get on an airplane. We know that if it's an event where Brad Pitt and other VIPs were, we know that there was security at that event protecting all the guests.
The indictment points out that Cantrell is responsible for signing and authorizing Vappy's expense forms after out-of-state trips, despite knowing they falsely reflected that Vappy had been engaged in official business activities. For 3 years, we've tried to ask the mayor questions about her work ethic, travel, Vappy's overtime payments, and a potential relationship with him. One time, the mayor called our questions and reporting off base and invasive.
Mayor Cantrell, you say you're working 24/7, and the records show that you spend a lot of the workday at the Upper Pentaba apartment with an NOPD officer. The city has crime and infrastructure issues. You've spent nearly 20% of the year out of town or out of the country. Many of those trips with an NOPD officer. Is any of that appropriate?
So, Mr. Zurich, thank you for being here. It kind of freaks me out to see you, quite frankly, because you've been very inappropriate, in my opinion. But relative to your accusations, none of them add up at all.
Instead of questions just from us, she'll now have to appear in federal court to answer those questions once again about her time outside the office.
That was Lee Zurich reporting. In court Friday, Cantrell and Vappy were both issued summons in relation to the indictment. We're still waiting to find out the date of Mayor Cantrell's first appearance.
All right.